Okay, everybody, we're days after the shooting in Las Vegas, and so far the mystery continues. The police haven't any clues, nobody knows what's been going on or why. There seems to be no motive. Nobody has any idea of why one lone guy would do this. I think I may have found some absolutely devastating evidence that might point us to a completely different scenario. And I'm going to lay this out for you piece by piece for you. But wait towards the end, because I've got a piece of information which I think virtually nobody else has noticed, which could be the key that opens up this entire investigation as to who carried out the massacre in Las Vegas. So let's start. What do we actually know, and how does that lead us to the reason of who did it and why? Well, first, we know that the room on the 32nd floor had 23 guns of varying types and a stash of unused ammo clips, and the floor strewn with used shell casings. We know that 2 windows were blown out, giving differing firing positions. We know that there were some explosives in the room, according to the sheriff. We also know from the sheriff that there were surveillance cameras set up going down the hall and also through the door peephole. We also know that a security guard, Jesus, went up to the room after an alarm was set off and was shot in the leg. He managed to escape and raise the alert, thank God. Lastly, we know that upon entry, the police found the body of Stephen Paddock, already dead with a gunshot to the head, and the pistol lying over his head and away a few feet. So let's just look at a few scenarios. First of all, let's look at Stephen Paddock. What do we actually know about him? Well, not much, but Paddock was a successful businessman. He was in the real estate business. He rented property. He had plenty of money. He was a successful professional gambler. We know that he'd won $5 million in 2015 gambling, and that is no small feat, so this guy was smart. He is said to by his brother to be a quiet, self-assured guy who was kind to his family, kind to his girlfriend, loved his girlfriend, and looked after other people. He's also said by his brother to have had little or no interest in guns, and he was really surprised to hear about this arsenal that was found. So this is a smart, intelligent guy. There's no evidence of mental illness that's been shown. There's no evidence of radicalization. We have no motive. We have no suicide note. In fact, up until the moment the shooting started, Stephen Paddock behaved completely normally. We also know from his brother in an interview that Paddock wasn't in great physical shape, so lifting heavy items was really not his thing. And his brother has stated that if Stephen Paddock had wanted to take up heavy suitcases, he would have certainly paid a bellboy $100 to bring them up on the trolley. He was a wealthy guy. That's what wealthy people do. They don't haul suitcases up to their rooms. And in this case, he would have just paid a guy to bring it up on the trolley. That's what his brother says anyway. So let's look at scenario 1, the police position. He appears to have been a lone shooter with no motive, and he was dead on entry to the room, and dead men tell no tales, as we know. So there's not much to go on, which is why the police are now appealing to the public for help. They're at a complete dead end, having investigated thousands of lines of inquiry, and still they have no explanation for anything that's happened. They say that he planned to escape, but we don't know what or how he planned to do this. They haven't told us. So let's look at a possible scenario 2. And this is speculation, but I think it's a plausible story, maybe. You ask yourself when I get to the end. First, the question, why would a lone shooter bring 23 guns, thousands of rounds of ammunition, to a shootout? Clearly, it makes no sense to have that much firepower for just one person. The police said they know he planned to escape, so from this we know that he wasn't in for the long haul. So he wasn't there to make a stand to the end. So having the 23 guns and all the ammo wasn't intended for him to be in a siege. So these two things really don't gel with each other. All the firepower to stand a siege and kill lots of people, but you also think you're going to be able to escape at the same time? This doesn't make sense. Point number 2. The only reason why anyone would bring 23 guns and ammo is if they intended to be used by more than one person. That's the only thing that makes sense in this. All those guns for more than one person. 3. Assuming this to be the case, and knowing Paddock was a bit of a loner with no ties to any other organisation or radical groups or anything, in fact, there's no evidence at all that he had any major gripes or anger against anything. He was just a business guy, making money, and he liked gambling. And he travelled as well, so he liked to go on cruise ships and visit parts of the world, which is what wealthy people do. Is it possible, we have to ask ourselves, that this was a set-up by an unknown group? Pure speculation, I know, but let's just think about that. Somebody shot the security guard Jesus in the leg, but he was shot through the door, so nobody knows who shot him. There's no witness seeing Paddock in the room prior to the entry when he was already dead, so we actually don't know who shot Jesus through the door. No bellboy has been identified for bringing up heavy bags into a room. We don't know if they were brought up over several days or if they all came up at the same time, but there's no evidence. No one's spoken out about this at all. So if Paddock wasn't able physically to carry, or willing to carry heavy bags up to his room, who brought them up? I think you're beginning to see where I'm going here, but stay with me. How can we support this theory that this was a setup by another unknown group of people? Well, look at the evidence. We have 2 shooting positions. Now, one would normally scope out a place and look for what was the optimum shooting position that was going to be needed. This was a really large suite with 2 additional bedrooms, so it covered a huge range across the end of that building. So it was a big place to operate, and what you would do if you were a lone shooter would be decide on your best shooting position and set that up. If you intended to have more than one shooter, then 2 windows would make sense, wouldn't it? It makes no sense if you're only on your own. You would use the best firing position. And remember this, no returning fire was ever fired at those windows, so there was no motivation for him to move from that position and open a new firing position in order to protect himself. So let's just speculate a bit more. A team, unknown, plans an attack. They identify Paddock as a patsy. For what reason? Well, he's well known to the hotel. In fact, he's well known around Las Vegas. He has gold cards to many of the hotels because he is a high stakes gambler. His brother said he could walk into almost any hotel, ask for a room and be given one for a week like that. So this is a guy that's known in town. For that reason, he would be trusted. No one would notice anything about him. He would just be coming and going, be nothing unusual about seeing Stephen Paddock in a casino hotel. Also, we know that he'd been gambling in the hours directly before the shooting, which is rather odd if you're planning a massacre to be casually downstairs playing the tables. But in the time that he was playing the tables, this would be a window of opportunity for a small team to bring up the bags and set up their sniper's nest. Then maybe what happens is Paddock returns to his room and he's immediately apprehended by the team. Then they start the shooting. Shortly afterwards, Jesus arrives, tries to gain entry to the room, and they shoot him through the door. They know now that time is running out on them. So the official timeline here is really important, and I'm going to run it through it for you and give you the main highlights. Jesus raised the alarm at 10:18, according to several timeline reports. At 10:26, officers arrive on floor 32 and they undertake to search rooms and clear them and get people out of the hotel, or out of that floor at least. but they do not approach room 32, which is at the far end of the building, because in the words of Sheriff Lombardo, quote, because no firing was occurring, they could not hear additional firing. They believed it was important to evacuate, in brackets, hotel rooms in case the suspect was barricaded in. So the firing had stopped and they were clearing hotel rooms at the other end of the hall. The next thing is at 10:55, 8 officers arrive at a stairwell at the opposite ends of the hallway, nearest to the suspect's room. And remember, these hotels have multiple stairways at different ends and in the middle, and many different types of escalators. So they arrive at 10:55 at the end of the hotel where room 135, the shooter's room, is. At 11:20, they breach the door and they find Paddock dead. So there's a window here between 10:18, when the alarm is raised by Jesus, and 10:26, when officers arrive on the floor of floor 32. That's an 8-minute perfect escape window. We know there was no firing going on because the sheriff told us there wasn't any. Why had the firing stopped? If they were in for the long haul, they'd keep firing. They had cameras to see what was going on. They knew what was coming. If it had been Paddock on his own, he'd be under no pressure either. He would know it was coming. He would have kept shooting as well. But actually, he didn't either. He didn't even try to escape, because the sheriff said he had plans to escape, but he had an 8-minute window in which to escape, but didn't use it. So none of this makes sense. So between 10:18 and 10:55, a team could have made their escape. They could have used that 8-minute window. They could have shot dead Paddock, leaving the patsy in the scene we now know. But lastly, here's a piece of information that's hardly ever been seen by anybody. At 10:34, remember 10:34, just 18 minutes after Jesus raised the alarm, in a quote from USA Today on October the 5th, and I'll say, quote, amid the confusion, police keep alert to other suspicious activity. A black truck races out of a parking lot, and a few minutes later, an older man wearing fatigues and carrying a black bag from the direction of the shooting climbed into a white recreational vehicle. Let's just check that again. At 10:34, according to USA Today on October the 5th, among the confusion, police are alert to activities, but a black truck races out of the parking lot, and an older man wearing fatigues and carrying a black bag from the direction of the shooting climbs into a white recreational vehicle and makes his way away. This is during the time when the hotel is in full lockdown. 2 men quickly exit the building, one carrying a bag, during the time of the lock time. This last piece of information, not widely reported, could be the smoking gun that we're looking for. So if a team went to that room on the 32nd floor, set up, carried out this terrible, awful massacre, once they'd been discovered, they had 8 minutes with which to make their way down a stairway at their end of the hall before police had even arrived at the other end of the hall. Get that? They've really got a window of escape. They then got a total of 18 minutes between being discovered and getting out into the parking lot, because that's when they may have been seen leaving the scene of the crime. 16 minutes to escape. Why has nobody followed up on this? Why is there not a search of CCTV looking for these vehicles and these guys? These vehicles are the kind of vehicles perfectly capable of carrying 10 suitcases of guns easily into the hotel car parks and up to room 32 without assistance from anybody. There seems to be a blackout on this. Even though the police are asking for help, and the thousands of personal smartphone footage that's been shot on that night, there might be something amongst there of these cars and these 2 guys. But the police aren't even asking the question. So what I'm saying is this. So far, nobody's come up with a plausible alternative solution to this particular mystery. All we've got is the lone shooter with no motive idea. 2 firing positions and a suicide of a guy who was armed and able and ready to kill anybody in sight. I think I found a plausible theory. It fits the official timeline, it fits the evidence in the room, and it fits as to why this decent, successful, wealthy man, who nobody could understand would do this, might not be the shooter, but instead might be a patsy. What's the motive? I have no idea. If we want to find the motive, we need to find those 2 guys who left the scene. Yeah, that's what we need to find, because they have the ideas. So please, will you like the video? Will you share this video? Let's disseminate this important piece of information. Let's get it out there, because somebody else may have another piece of information on those guys and the black truck and the white recreational vehicle. So please, press the like button, subscribe for news that I may have coming up, and let's get this out there to everybody to see what else is not known.